Hey guys, today is day 4, week 1 of Finish the Book Challenge. I hope we enjoyed yesterday's training on consistency and we learned some basic principles on how to move forward and how to make the smoothest transition possible. And that what is a lot about this week. This week is about launch, is about blast off, and we blasted off and we're getting momentum and we're building forward and we keep going. This first week is the most important because we're having that habit, we're building in the stakes that for the rest of our life will change fundamentally of who we think we are or how we define ourselves. And today is about our identity, the power of our identity and the power of changing our identity to who we want to become. Because the most strongest force, this is so powerful, the most strongest force in the human personality is this need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. That is so true. For example, if you're someone who wants to start a new workout regimen, but you define yourself as a person who doesn't work out, then it'll be really hard to stick to that. If you define yourself as a person who smokes, it'll be very hard and almost impossible to quit smoking. If you want to, for example, if you want to have a habit of reading and be able to read and finish books, but you define yourself as someone who can't or doesn't read, it'll be really hard to stick to that habit and actually improve and get better on your reading. And I want to really discuss the power of identity and have a few new distinctions to move forward into actually knowing the power of what you're doing and have clarity in focusing on why are we creating a habit, why are we doing these things. We're doing these things to change who we think we are, to change what we think we are capable of. And yes, we've done that through creating an amazing result by going through the reading method. And 2, we're going to do that through habits. We're going to do it through actions. We're going to do it on a consistent basis. So guess what? We'll finish a book. And by the end of the 30 days, you'll have finished the book and thought, wow, I've done that. This is like who I am. This is like who I've came. And I've started and I finished this book. And guess what? It didn't seem too hard. It didn't seem too challenging. I wasn't stressed. I didn't feel fatigued. There wasn't loads of mental fog. It was clear. If I've done that, now what can I do? All the things you learned from that, now what can I do? And guess what? In this challenge, I designed this challenge not just for you to start and finish a book and that's it, for you to really unlock the potential you have inside yourself and get rid of all the stuff that we have sometimes building up that holds us back, of all the beliefs of our past and of our bad education that's really held back our potential. Because this is what we'll get into next week, is about how to learn, the components behind how to learn, and really having a new way of thinking of learning, and really breaking down some negative beliefs that we have about learning. And that week's a little bit more in depth about the science of learning and how you can maximize your potential about learning. And it's so excited. But I think at the end of this 30-day challenge, we're not just reading the book alone, but watching these trainings on how to maximize yourself and go through this challenge. By doing that, I feel you would have so much more knowledge and you have so much more potential. Because then if you wanted to, you don't have to finish the book in a month. You can finish the book in a week by the skills and the system and the strategy we can teach you. Because next week we can teach you about speed reading, how you can speed read, how a dyslexic person or whatever you define yourself as can speed read. And guess what? It is possible to speed read with 100% comprehension no matter the difficulty. Okay? And that's what we're going to talk about. And so today is about changing your identity. Now, when we understand this and understand, okay, we're focused on changing our identity. For example, if I was going through the challenge right now, and as I was starting to go through the challenge months ago, when I started reading my first book, I was like, oh my God, I'm focusing and I'm wanting to become a person who's a reader. And now I've read 4 books, I'm currently on my 4th book, I define myself as that. I define myself as a reader. And that's what my focus on at the start was. Like, okay, how can I work on defining myself as a reader? And that's one focus you should have. when you're going through these days and reading for however long, focus on defining yourself as a reader. Focus on, okay, I'm going to become a reader. That's who I'm going to become. That's who my identity is. That's where my values lie, becoming a reader. Because guess what happens when you do that? Your motivation turns from push to pull. Now let me explain this. There's two forms of motivation. There's push motivation. Motivation when you have to push yourself to do something. You have to push yourself to maybe start this challenge, turn on this live, to work out, to do this thing you don't really want to do. You have to push yourself to do it. That's push motivation. And that's basically discipline and forcing yourself to do something. And then there's pull motivation. And pull motivation is completely different. Pull motivation is something you physically want to do. You look forward to it. That's your motivation. Motivation is look forward to it. You want to do this thing for who you will become, for what you'll get out of it. And push motivation is something that you force yourself to do because you know there's consequences of what's going to happen if you don't do it. And I want to understand this motivation, and a good thing that can change it from push to pull is if you define yourself as someone who does this, who is this sort of person, who is a reader, your motivation will change from push motivation, having to get yourself to do something over and over again, to someone who looks forward to reading, to someone who knows it because that's who they are as their identity of themselves. That's a big difference. And let me tell you something about motivation. When it's push motivation, it doesn't last. You don't have an endless supply of discipline. It just doesn't last. You get fatigued. Eventually, you can't discipline yourself all the time. There's like studies done where there's like everyone has a set amount of discipline. And yes, it can go over time like a muscle. But if you always have to make decisions all the time about what you should do, about what you should wear, what you should eat, how you should go to work, all these new decisions, you'll be fatigued. And then eventually you'll make the easiest decision. Because if you always have to discipline yourself, all the little decisions you take to make the right decision, you'll be fatigued like at 10 a.m. of not going to have that chocolate thing, of not buying that rubbish, of not doing this, of not doing that. But if you make it automatic as your identity and also as systems in place, then you won't feel fatigued. I have so many systems in place to help me keep me on track and help me doing the right things, to not have motivation. Because I want to be absolutely honest with you on here. My sense of discipline has been quite low, lower than I want it to be, lower than it has been in the past. And it just has been because I've let it be that way. But because these systems I have in place, I've still been most of the time consistent, even though my discipline hasn't been there. And yes, I have to push myself to do certain things like getting up and working out. But I've done those things. And but without getting too far off track, I want you to understand that sometimes discipline won't always be the answer, or pushing yourself, or being hard on yourself. But sometimes it's rarely the answer. And also, I want to talk to you about something here that I'll cover later on, but it's really, really important, especially now. As we're starting something new, there's sometimes people around us that will hold us back from our ultimate potential. Think, I'm doing something really positive here. People should be happy and grateful because you may have learnt to read, you want to tell everyone and you want to celebrate, and people go, oh, well done, I wonder how long this will last. Oh, well done, are you really sure you can do it? Are you really sure this isn't some, you mean lie? You had all this help in the past. What makes you think you can read now? There might be some people like that in your life, right? Isn't there? Some people that you share good news to and they hold you back. And to be honest, that's a part of life. I know people like, sometimes my mum was like that all the time with certain things. I know she loves me, she cares about me, and she supports me. But she supports me in her own frame of reference of how the world works, same as my dad, same as a lot of other people. They support me the best they can, but with how the world works. Their version of how the world works. And I think their version of how the world works is not my version, therefore I don't want to listen to it. Because I personally look at people in terms of, if you give me advice on something, on, for example, how to be healthy, I'm going to look at you as an example. Are you a person that I admire? Are you a role model in this area? If not, I don't want to take advice from you. If I don't want to take advice from someone how to be healthy, if someone who's fat, I'm not going to take advice from someone who's, of how to be wealthy when they're poor. Because that's stupid. I look at the role models. The reason why I think I'm a good role model for this, because I've done it recently. It's happened. This is true. And this is extraordinary transformation that I've went through and helped other people to go through. And that's why I feel I'm a good role model to help teach these things. So that's it. And when people say those negative things out there, know that they're doing it from a loving place, but also don't listen to them. They may be people that have a heavy influence on you. Your mum, your dad, family members, brothers, sisters, spouse, or teachers or whoever, colleagues. They may have a high influence over you, or you may hold them in high regard. But really ask yourself, are they a role model in this area? Have they had dyslexia and gone through it? Do you want to trade places with them in this area? Knowing the struggles that you've had. For example, they've had dyslexia and they've had dyslexia all their life, they had loads of help and they learned, something like that. And if that's the case, if they're the master of this thing and they put you down and you trust them in this, for example, the person that's the best person in weight loss, and for example, you want to lose weight and you have this person that's like the highest of the height in weight loss thing, and you've tried this thing to lose weight and it's working for you and you're loving it and it's going really good, and you got more results than you ever got before, and then this person who's really high up, who knows everything about everything, and you look up to him, goes, you're on the wrong track. Guess what? You should listen to that person because they've got more experience. Their opinion is more valid because they've got more experience in it, and that's why you should listen. But if they haven't got more experience, if someone talking about how to be wealthy and yet they're not wealthy, how to be fit but they're not fit, how to live a happy lifestyle but they're not living a happy lifestyle, don't listen to them. And this is a bit about my opinion and basically how to tackle it when people around you aren't supporting you. And it does happen, especially with massive fundamental change. And a part of the reason why they're not supporting you is the way you think they should, and what's nice, and how you'd want to be, because you're so excited about this thing. You tell people you're really excited and they can sometimes make your flame go down, can't they? It's because they're scared that you would go above that and stand in terms of that. You would grow more than them, and then therefore you won't have enough in common. I've experienced that a lot with people that I've grown up with, and it's just something you have to go through. But also, because the people you hang around with is the people you become, but that's something we'll talk about some other day. And so guys, your identity is so important. Don't let anyone else change it. And also, grow to become a reader. Because you probably never thought you could. But I'm telling you now, and you're experiencing it yourself through this method, that you can. Alright guys, I'll see you tomorrow for day 5.